A lot of people are saying that the modern dating world is a mess. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, okay. Big topic. One of the reasons why people are saying that the modern dating world is a mess is because of dating apps and because people are treating dating almost like a business and they're going out on a lot more dates. You see, before dating apps, people didn't date as much. So there were less horror stories to talk about. Before dating apps, people were going on, they'd meet someone at the gym, or they'd meet someone through friends, they'd meet someone through family, they'd meet someone through community. And now it's technology. So we're living in a time where technology, as amazing as it can be, is making us weaker in our social skills. And dating requires just connecting with another human being. In order to connect well with another human being, you need social skills. And with technology and just the way the world is and the rise of loneliness, even though we're so paradoxically connected through technology, people text more. So they're not actually connecting. And so people go on dates and they don't actually know how to talk with each other. And because of the dating apps, it's like, oh, I'm just going to swipe right or I'm just going to swipe left. You're not actually a human being. You're just someone who I'm judging right off the bat. Or I'm going to go on the dating. Lots of people go on dating apps to get a hit of validation. Who's hitting on me? Who's not hitting on me? And where we have gotten lost is that it is about making connections with human beings. And the thing is, we are all so starved for connection, and yet we're settling for like these meaningless hookups or casual stuff because we've lost in many ways our ability to talk to each other. Now, is there a rise of emotionally unavailable people? I don't believe so. I just think that we go on so many more dates. I think that this always existed. So I think dating apps can be an amazing tool. I have many clients who have found their spouses and people who they refer to as the love of their lives on dating apps. But remember, if you are on dating apps, you're likely going on a lot of dates. And here's another thing that I will say. A lot of these things existed. They have always existed. It's never been easy to find love. If it were easy, we wouldn't actually cherish the discovery of a match in another person. There's always been people who are kind of a nightmare. I mean, you just have to look at the show Sex and the City. Sex and the City, which was huge in the 90s and the very early 2000s, chronicled dating in New York City. And it's like one nightmare after another, but obviously done in a comedic way. This is before dating apps. So I just don't know if it's really true that the dating world is such a mess right now. But what I can say is that an interesting study is to see the relationship between the rise of technology and the fall of our social skills.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up dating apps because like dating apps have become the solution for majority of people now. I don't remember the latest stats, but I would imagine it's higher than the last time I saw, or it was like at the time, I think it was like 2/3 of people said they met online. And that was back, I think maybe 2020 or so. And now I imagine it's even higher. And yet I've heard you say and others that dating apps, I don't want to say they are the problem, but they certainly can be the problem for.
No, it's not the dating app. It's how we're using them. Right. It's like, and it's also, there's so many, you're dating a lot of strangers. Like for women in particular, women have to be very, very careful in dating apps because you're meeting up with men who you don't know and they could be violent. Like these are literally strangers. Whereas before this, it was, again, more often than not, you're getting set up by someone or you're meeting someone through friends. And so there's this level of accountability that doesn't exist when you meet someone in a dating app.
And you mentioned that a lot of people go on there for validation. I mean, I remember years ago, somebody had told me there's like, 5, 6, 7 reasons that people go on dating apps. It was like, there's the people that go on there for validation, like you mentioned. There's people who are like on the verge of getting divorced or breaking up. that go on there to see what else is out there. There's people that are just cheating in a relationship that go on there. There's people that are kind of dipping their toes in the dating world, kind of nervous to date, don't know what they're doing, don't really know what they want, but just want to see what it is. They're on there. Then what's left is like the person who actually wants to find love, right? And it's like, so you're going on an app where a majority of the people, I would guess, aren't really looking for a relationship.
I don't know if it's the majority of people on dating apps are not looking for love.
Let me reframe that. I think people are going into dating apps with the unrealistic expectation that every single person on the app is looking for a long-term relationship.
Yes, and I think we can just say it another way, which is that there's people on dating apps for various reasons. So therefore you have to be very clear in your intentions before getting on a dating app.
Yeah. And because I know one of the things I really enjoy about you and your content is you don't put people into like boxes. You don't tell people like exactly what to do for themselves. Everybody's different, but you also talk in general terms. And, I would imagine that somebody who's looking for a relationship, if there's they're not going to find a relationship, they're going to attract the same type of person that just wants the quick hit, the quick fix, and the validation as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if you're actually looking for a long-term relationship, that's not going to be the best approach. If you had like a checklist for the average person that they should do before hopping on a dating app, what should they do?
Well, can we expand it to what I think someone should do before they start dating, period, whether it's on an app or not? One of the most powerful questions we can ask ourselves is, what do I want? Because the more that we can get clarity in our minds, the more our lives will reflect that clarity. And it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know what I want because I'm just out of a divorce. And so I just kind of want to get my sea legs back. That's totally legitimate. But get very clear about what it is that you want. If you want a long-term relationship, or let's say you're dating to get married, or you're dating for that kind of level of partnership, get very clear about what your values are, what's incredibly important to you, the kind of relationship that you want to have, and the kind of partner that you want to find, what kind of character, and, what kind of partner you want to be. This is actually really important. These are the things that we don't learn in school. Get very, very clear before you get out into the dating world about what it is that you want and go a little bit deeper. Why do you want that? What are the values that you want to share with another person? What's going to happen? What are you going to do when you're attracted to someone, but they have like multiple things or even just one thing on your list that you absolutely know that like a deal breaker? How are you going to handle that? Are you going to sleep with them? Or are you going to say, nice to meet you, but no thanks? How open-minded are you going to be? Where do you draw the line in open-mindedness? Can you go into the dating world and manage your expectations? Here's the thing. Don't start dating until you can really understand that there's no guarantee, but it is likely that it's going to take longer than you are comfortable to meet someone who you really, truly connect with on an emotional and physical level.
Right. And you mentioned the word deal breaker. I would love to dive into this more. That was one of the questions I want to talk about. Like, how do you define what a deal breaker is? And I think with this stuff, I think people need to get past like the obvious deal breakers if somebody is like always angry or they're rude, or if they found out they were a serial cheater or whatever the example is.
But that's actually important because there will be people who say, well, they cheated on their ex, but they've done a lot of work on themselves. Okay. What's your history? How many cheaters have you dated? Oh, well, my last 3 relationships, they all cheated on me. Okay, great. Don't date someone else who cheated, even if they did a lot of work on themselves. Just don't. That should be a deal breaker for you because clearly there's a pattern there. So the way that you discover your deal breakers is, here's the goal in relationships. Learn. Be a student. Reflect on your past relationships. What did you learn? What worked in your past relationships? What didn't work? What are some of the patterns that you have in terms of the type of person that you date that really isn't good for you? And then come up with like 5 deal breakers, which means Even if you meet someone who's perfect in every other way, if they have even just one of those deal breakers, you don't date them.
Right. And so how can somebody get clear on what a deal breaker is and what a deal breaker isn't for them, though?
It's the thing that it's something that's incredibly important to you. So your deal breaker represents the thing that if it's present in another person or if it's present in the relationship will prevent you from feeling safe in the relationship.
Right.
Or it really goes against your values. Like a deal breaker for me, for example, is like if you smoke, even if you just like smoke like very casually, it's a deal breaker for me. That goes completely against my value system. So that's a deal breaker.
What about vaping?
Oh my God, that's a bigger deal breaker. That is the biggest turnoff. When I see someone vaping, all I see is weakness. And I feel really bad saying that because I know there's some people who vape, but no. I could not talk about an ick. That is my biggest ick.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think, I mean, nothing against people who vape and they're trying to do it because they don't want the like toxicity from cigarettes, but
No. This is really important. Vaping is worse for your lungs than cigarettes.
how so? Just is.
There's a study on it. Google it. Yeah, it really is. And actually, you know, my sister was very critically ill over the winter and I was talking to one of the lung specialists there and they said that they're seeing more and more cancer from vaping. So vaping is terrible for you. Anyway, moving on from vaping.
Moving on from vaping. You know, getting like, I want to kind of like dive into this a little bit more because I think that there's a lot of rhetoric online about what women want from men. And, you know, many people will say women like men of status, women like men with money, women like men who, you know, have their stuff together. Women have men that look a certain way. And while I think a lot of that can be true, I know you talk about something a bit different that actually matters more for women. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Most women are attracted to strength. That's what they're attracted to in a man. The women who date men are attracted to strength. So if he makes money, a lot of women associate that with strength, with having power, with having a strong mind, with being smart. Women are drawn to men who this is biological. We are looking for safety and for providership. What's most important to understand is that there are a lot of kept women in the world. Kept, but I mean, you know, with a rich guy who has tons of status, pays for everything. She never has to worry about anything when it comes to monetary stuff. And a lot of those kept women are lonely. A lot of them are cheating. A lot of them are miserable. Why? Because true providership, in my view, from a man is someone who who's done the work on himself to be able to bring presence and emotional support and understanding to his woman. So what that looks like is he does not run away to his cave when there's conflict. The man cave is like his place where he works on himself, maybe does his hobbies. It's not a place where he escapes his relationship. So, and that the cave that serves as the avoidance is the biggest threat to a woman in a relationship. And so with conflict, he's like, we're handling this right now. And she's like, yes, we're handling this right now. When women by nature, particularly of a certain age group, especially menstruating women, are more emotional than men are. We just are more in touch with our emotions. Part of that is conditioning. Part of that is biological due to our hormonal system. When a man when he can handle her emotions, that doesn't mean that she has a past to be a bitch. That doesn't mean that she has a past to be constantly dysregulated. That doesn't mean that she gets a past to not work on herself. But instead of him constantly trying to fix what's wrong with her, he is just empathetic. That's providership. And that is more important than status or money. That said, it's going to be very difficult for many women to respect a man who does not have a pot to piss in. So there's a difference between having a lot of money and someone who is just like, he's stable. He's financially stable. He's financially responsible, because we're just not going to be, we can't respect you if you can't take care of yourself financially.
Right.
We see you as totally weak.
And it seems like,
and I know that, but to all the women listening to this right now, if you're in your 20s, for God's sake, give the guy a break. See where he can grow into and see if he's got ambition and direction and purpose. That's what's important. But I hear young women all the time in their early 20s talking about men with status. It's like, are you kidding me? Be the woman who's with a man as he's building something, and hopefully you're building something too, because you need purpose too, honey. That's important. Always have your own money. That's what I would say to women. Always have your own money.
Is there a way for women to be able to, I don't want to say test men, because that comes across as, manipulative in a way, but is there a way to maybe learn more about a man to see if he's actually strong? Because there's plenty of men that are wealthy and have status that are weak, right? And emotionally unavailable.
That's a great question, Doug. Yeah, it's character. It's emotional strength. It's mental strength. That doesn't mean perfect. You're not going to meet someone. Everyone has an inner child. Everyone has wounds. Everyone fears they're not enough. So women really have to stop thinking, oh, let me get into this relationship with my king, with my prince, who's going to always make me safe. No. First of all, you have to look within. Who do you have to be to even attract that kind of man? What are the qualities that you need to develop in yourself to even inspire that in a man? And you also have to make yourself safe. But you asked the question, what do we look for? So what you're looking for is a man with a strong character. So his words and his actions align, at least most of the time, which he means he has integrity. Is he kind to you? Hello, kindness. Hello, kindness. Is he kind? Is he kind to the people in his life? Is he kind to strangers? Can you rely on him? And do you see the people in his life relying on him? Does he have trust? Is he trustworthy? Is he generous? Generous with his time, generous with his energy, generous with his pocket sometimes, look, that's a deal breaker. Generosity is a high value for me. So you have to be generous with me because I'm very generous, right? And I think that generous people need to find each other. So these are the things to look for, because just because a man has made a really great living for himself doesn't mean that he's going to be a good partner.
You brought up conflict a few minutes ago, and I think that you mentioned that one of the key signs that a man is strong is that he doesn't run away from conflict. He's like, let's figure this out now. Let's figure this out in an hour. There's a plan to figure out the conflict, right? I think a lot of the fear around that comes from obviously childhood, but also this notion that conflict is bad in a relationship. And I think conflict is great if it's handled the right way, because if you don't speak your mind, resentment builds, etc. Talk about the importance of conflict in a healthy relationship and how two people can navigate it effectively.
It's not that conflict is important. It's how you deal with conflict that matters. Conflict is just a reality. You are an autonomous being in a relationship with another autonomous being. You don't see the world exactly the same. That is a part of why you're attracted to each other, because it's those differences that actually create chemistry, even if it's a non-sexual chemistry between two people. So understanding that reality is subjective, and everything that we see, we're seeing through the filter of our past experience and through our conditioning and through our belief system and through our past and history, that means that you are inevitably going to have conflict. Meaning you are going to look at something, you're both going to be looking at something, and you're going to see it very differently. And you are going to really want your partner to see it the same way that you see it. And then you throw in hurt feelings, and you throw in, oh my God, what if I'm not enough for this person? Or, I saw my dad do this to my mom, and he better not be doing that to me. There's so much that goes into it. The strongest, healthiest couples are the ones who are like, okay, there's an argument, there's a problem, there's something that let's fix it now. Let's sit down and fix it. Let's not go to bed angry. Now, I'm not all for staying up late when you're exhausted and arguing, but I am for, you know what, hugging it out, saying I love you, and just saying, let's resume this in the morning. So I don't believe in going to bed angry. Avoiding conflict and just keeping the peace, which I think speaks directly to your question. Very important. When all we want to do is keep the peace, we do grow very resentful. And what you want to do is, in a relationship, you want to encourage that the other person comes to you when you are upset. And the way that you encourage it is not by only saying, I want you to come to me when you're upset. It's by making it safe for people to come to you when you're upset. Because what you don't want is 5 years down the road, your spouse or your partner saying, remember when? And that resentment. And that's what eats away at a relationship.
So when two people are sitting down trying to resolve a conflict, like, how do you think people can handle it so it actually like moves the relationship forward?
Yeah. So you take turns saying how you saw what happened, meaning this is what I observed. This is the meaning that I gave it. And this is how it made me feel. And then the other person needs to repeat back to them how they interpreted what the person said. Then they have to both agree and both validate for each other that they understand each other's point of view, that they heard each other. And sometimes there's not going to be an immediate resolution, but there is great value in being able to say, okay, here's this thing that happened. We both gave it a completely different meaning, which led to us feeling a certain sort of way. Salty, hurt, whatever it is. How can you and I reunite and just like squash this problem? More times than not, what squashes the problem is, oh my God, I'm so sorry I hurt you. I'm so sorry that hurts. I really wish I could take that back. I wish it never happened. I'm really sorry. I won't do that again. Here's the thing. Apologies are so incredibly difficult, Doug, because it means that we have to admit to something that likely is very shameful for us. Like, we are constantly trying to protect our egos. And here's the thing. When you're in an argument with someone, like your partner, and your goal is to win, basically what you're saying is, you have to change. I don't have to change. So if you're treating an argument like a debate, and you win the debate, that's your goal. I'm going to win the debate. Then basically what you're saying, you're fighting for your right to not change. And you are trying to prove to the other how they must change. And being in a relationship means that we are going to have to change. We're going to have to let go of certain parts of ourselves that isn't helping the relationship. We're going to have to change some behavior. We're going to have to change a habit that we have. So the greatest sacrifice in a relationship is the sacrifice of certain parts of ourselves that our egos really cling to. And it requires so much maturity and humility. So the moral of the story is, don't treat an argument like a debate where there's a winner and there's a loser, because when that happens, your relationship is just going to continue to get worse.
What do you recommend so that people can quote unquote fight fair?
Take responsibility. Oh, wow. They're pointing out something that I don't want to take a look at, but you know what? I want peace in my relationship more than anything else. And so I'm going to take a look at this. What's more important, my ego or the relationship? It really just boils down to this. I know this is just not easy. It's not easy, but it really just boils down to this.
And is there a way to point out somebody's flaws or the way somebody may have hurt somebody in a way, like how would you recommend doing it in a way that's not going to put them on the defensive?
I think, when it comes to maybe, let's say you see your partner, for example, handling a situation with their friend that you don't think is the right way to handle it. Like you really feel strongly that the way that your partner is handling this situation with their friend isn't right or fair. Or, maybe you think your partner is just stuck in their ego, right? And so you just do it sort of compassionately and with love and just say, look, I want to talk to you about this. I know this is really difficult for you. I hear you. I understand you. If I were you, I'd be feeling the same way. But as someone from the outside looking in, I do think that you could really, I think you could listen to this person a little bit more. I think that there's something that they're saying that you could be paying attention to. And what is one of the best qualities in a partner? Willing to take influence, willing to accept influence. And I think a lot of men need to learn how to do that more with their partners, is learning how to let their partner influence them a little bit with their opinion. It's actually important.
And do you think there's certain things that should just be let go? Because like pettiness, I feel like
most things need to be let go of.
But is there certain things that aren't worth bringing up?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I believe that mindfulness is a really important life and relationship skill. And part of mindfulness is being able to discern when you're annoyed with your partner because you yourself are in a bad mood. You yourself, you're stressed, or you're just watched a fairy tale on a rom-com and you're like, why isn't he more like that? That kind of thing. And to be able to be like, is this me, or is this something that really needs to be brought up? Can I let this go? Am I holding on to this because this is me versus them? I'll tell you an interesting story. So I was speaking to a woman who's married, and she asked me the question, how does one stop ruminating after their partner says something to them or frustrates them or upsets them? She's like, that thing where you just can't stop thinking about it. You can't stop talking about it with your friends. And so I asked her to give me an actual example. And she said something along the lines that she was kind of in an argument with her husband, and his husband said something along the lines of well, you wanted this, you wanted to start this business, alluding to the fact why are you complaining that you're so busy? You chose this, right? And of course it's if he was in the conversation, I'd be like, you could have said that differently. But she attached such a strong meaning to it. Can't believe he said that to me. He doesn't care. He doesn't support me in my work. And, so the rumination is the rumination of a narrative of the story. So she's going down the wormhole of all these meanings and stories because of that thing that he said. And so I asked her, I said, what do you think could have been going on for him when he said that? What do you think, if you were to put yourself in his shoes, if you were to step into his nervous system, what was he experiencing the very moment or the moments leading up to him saying that to you? And she said, definitely fear, because one of the things that he's working on is not running away during conflict, being really present. I said, okay, so do you think his heart rate was elevated? Yes. Do you think that maybe he felt a lot of tension? Yes. Where do you think he felt the tension? And I literally took her through a process of her kind of being him and what he was maybe feeling in that moment. And what she realized was that, she had been a little salty with him that day, and he was feeling not good enough. And he was in a moment where he really just wanted to flee, but he was trying to be present. And he said something that was more representative of his inner teenager, but I helped her have some empathy for him and to see where her role was in that conversation. And that's how you stop ruminating. And so that's my long answer to when do you let it go versus when do you bring it up? Well, can you see how much of it is you? Can you have some more empathy for where they were coming from or what they were experiencing when they said that? So I can't say exactly, but I do think that that was a story worth sharing.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that like being able to take a step back and objectively look at the situation and say like, what's my role in this? You know, is this a problem that I actually feel strongly about, or is it because I'm having a bad day? Is it because I didn't sleep too well? Is it because I'm stressed? Is it because I'm triggered? Whatever the example is. But, you know, I think along with rumination, like a cousin of rumination is resentment. And I feel like resentment, destroys relationships, right? Because the inability to speak up and to keep things under the rug, etc., will just lead to like long-term anger. And like you said, it's like 5 years down the road. Remember when you did this?
Yes. Sorry. No, go ahead. Oh, just something I was going to add is if someone like your partner says something that hurts your feelings, right away, just say, ouch, that really hurt. Instead of going in for the kill for like a fight. And then maybe a conversation comes out of that. Like, what was going on for you in that moment when you said that to me? That really hurt. Sorry, I just wanted to add that because I think it's important.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, how do you prevent resentment from building up other than handling conflict in the moment? Like, do you recommend like check-ins? Because I think that can be daunting for people to have like a relationship check-in.
Once a week, have a check-in. And your check-in is a meeting the way you sit down and you talk about any issues, money, if you have kids, whatever, scheduling with the kids, any grievances, every single week, have that check-in. And it should be at least about an hour.
Like, what are the questions you should ask about grievances and stuff?
No, it's just like, is there anything, could I be a better partner for you this week? Is there anything that we need to talk about money? So there's two goals for this meeting. One is, let's not let resentment build up at all. And that has to be an agreement that the couple has. We are agreeing to not let resentment destroy our connection. So that means we have to tell each other the truth and we have to be committed to this, right? The second thing is, you know, it's a real drag for couples to like every day be talking about, did you pay this? Did you do this bill? And like the scheduling and all of that, because, you know, it can really kill a sex life. But if you have it for just one day a week where you sit down and you're like, let's go over the business that is a relationship. Because if you live together and you have a family together, it is like running a ship. You are running the ship of your relationship. So instead of just talking about the business aspect of your relationship all week, which is just not that fun to do it that much all day long or all week long, do it once a week and get on the same page.
This episode is brought to you by Carol Bike. I recently had the chance to chat with Carol Bike's CEO and co-founder Ulrich Dempfli about the incredible benefits of Rehit, also known as reduced exertion, high-intensity training, an innovative approach that the Carol Bike is designed to deliver. This method can significantly boost metabolic and cardiovascular health, all while requiring a minimal time investment. Forget one-size-fits-all fitness regimes. Carol Bike brings personalized workouts into your home, tailored to your fitness level and goals through cutting-edge AI technology. The number one limitation for my personal training clients over the years isn't money, it's time. Everyone is so busy with their personal and professional lives, making it very difficult to allocate hours per week to exercise. Whether you're looking to improve heart health, lose weight, or simply stay active, Carol's scientifically validated approach ensures you're getting the most out of every workout in 90% less time than traditional cardio. So if you're looking to experience this smart and effective way to stay fit and make the most out of your cardio workout, head over to carolbike.com and use the code Doug for a nice discount off your bike. Again, head to carolbike.com and use the code Doug for a nice discount off your bike. Now back to the show. Right. We talked about some societal myths. We talked about like, you know, some of the myths earlier about like how the effectiveness of dating apps. We talked about like what women want from a man. Are there any other relationship or societal myths that are out there, either online or offline, that you think are actually like making it harder for people?
I think the myth of the one that there's just like this one twin flame who's out there who, when they come into your life, everything's going to fall into place and everything's just going to be perfect. I think people intellectually know that that's not true, but we all have this sort of unconscious craving to find oneness through another person. And because love is what makes us feel whole, but we have this deep misunderstanding and delusion that it's the love that someone gives to you that's going to make you whole, rather than the love that the two of you build together and generate together that could lead to more wholeness. And that, no one can actually do that for you. So this idea that love is just this commodity that's given to you, and when it's given to you in the right way, then everything's going to be better. It's not, there's no one in this world exists to complete you. Everyone's flawed. So everyone is going to ultimately disappoint you in some way, right? Hopefully not in any way that feels like a betrayal, but no one can meet your needs all of the time. So love is very healing, but what you need in someone to really be the right person for you is someone who you can grow with and handle conflict with. So no one is coming to rescue us from ourselves. It just does not work like that. I wish it did, but it doesn't.
People are saying they're looking for the one. Is it they're looking for somebody who's perfect, or are they looking for somebody to complete them?
Both. When people think that with the right person, their problems are going to go away. And the thing is, all of our problems temporarily go away in the honeymoon phase. That's why it's so addictive. It's like we're so excited about this new connection that we're not thinking about our depression, our anxiety, our money problems, our weight problems, or whatever problems, our health problems. But ultimately, our problems are still there and they will come back. It's a pretty well-known thing. And if it's not, I'll reiterate it for everyone. One of our bad habits as human beings, you can't really blame us for it, because just one part of the human experience is that we're always looking for happiness outside of ourselves. And a relationship is one of the most profound ways we search happiness outside of ourselves. This is because we've been conditioned to believe that another person can make us happy. Another person can't make us happy. They can add to our happiness. They should add tremendous value. I mean, why be in a relationship if it's not in some way making your life better? Then why bother? It should make your life better. You should be making each other's lives better because you're both in each other's lives. But no one can make you happy. And the association to this archetypical, the one, twin flame soulmate is, with this person, I will be happy. Whereas happiness and fulfillment is an inside job, and no one exists to complete you. And then in addition to that, people have this long laundry list of how another person has to be without ever searching inside themselves to see what they need to change to be in a relationship that they wish to be in. And so that's part of what's poisoning the dating pool, is people not actually having that level of self-awareness.
How does somebody actually know if they're in love with somebody?
How does someone know that they're in love with them? I think it's like loving someone for who they are and also who they can become, like seeing a beauty in them that is really bright. I think it's caring about someone as much as you care about yourself, not more, but as much. I think it's really wanting that other person to be happy, even if it means that you're not in their life. You want them to be happy. You want them to shine. You want them to, it's very similar to the love that you would have for anyone else, except with this person, you also want to sleep with them.
I know you have 9 hard truths about relationships that people need to learn in your new book. What are the few you think people need to learn first?
Well, the first one is the first one for a reason, which is we are the common denominator in all our relationships. That does not mean that we are the blame of everything that's happened in our relationships, but it does mean that if we want to see a change in our lives, if we want to see a change in our love lives, we have to be willing to do the hard work of just looking inward and saying, what are my patterns, and what do I need to change in my thinking? What do I need to change in the way that I think about myself? What do I need to change in terms of the kind of people who I date? What do I need to change in my communication skills? Because we can't change anyone. We can only change ourselves. And I think that's a very, very empowering sentiment. It's not about blame. It's about you are so much more powerful and in control than you actually think you are. So that's the very first one.
Given all the increased distractions, how can people maintain connection in the relationship?
It's a great question, because maintaining connection is the most important goal of a relationship. How do we stay connected? Through distractions, through hard times. There's different ways to stay connected. There's as simple as how you greet each other after you haven't seen each other all day, how you greet each other at the door. Oh, hi, honey. It's so nice to see you. I missed you. And a big hug and a kiss, versus looking down at your phone or looking at the TV and then being like, what's up? So that's, it's the little things. It's how you talk to each other at the dinner table. Is the phone out, or are you actually engaging with each other? Here's what's really important. Two people in a relationship, they have like their own lives. It's like these parallel lives that are happening. How do you actually have that, but then also stay connected? I think every day there should be like, how was your day? Tell me about your day. If things are really busy, that meeting that I suggested once a week should be talking about what's going on in your world right now, what's going on at work. Each person shares that, because the amount of, interesting that you bring up connection. One of the more fascinating discoveries that I made when I started working with couples and families many years ago was people living under the same roof are strangers to each other. They don't really know what's going on with the other person. Not really. You need to know what's going on in your partner's world, and they need to know what's going on in yours. That's important. Sex is also really important, and that's up to the discretion of the couple, how much, how little, but sex is how people stay connected. Do fun things together. Do activities that you both enjoy together, and do it every week.
Like, going back to the sex thing, like, how often do you think people need to be intimate? Like, I was surprised. I Googled like the amount of time, like the number of times that the average couple kisses on a weekly basis, and it was like so low. It was like astounding to me.
Yeah, I think let's talk about just a kiss or touch that doesn't actually lead to sex. Touch is very important in a relationship. It does not matter what your love language is or isn't. Touch is important. And I'm talking about non-sexual touch, holding hands, a hug, a hand on the thigh, a hand on the arm, putting your arm around someone. It's very, very, very important. And I can always tell how close a couple is by the way their body language is with each other, and if they smile at each other, and as they smile at each other, they, there's a touch on the shoulder or a touch on the hand.
I mean, I think I've heard from people that it's like the more touch points you can have with somebody throughout the day, the more intimate you will end up being like later on. Like, you can't just turn on a switch, right?
No, you can't just turn on the switch. And it depends. Women certainly can't. That's for sure. Most women need a lot more foreplay, and the foreplay doesn't even start necessarily in the bedroom. The foreplay is just, honey, I'll do the dishes for you. Sometimes that's really the foreplay. You asked how often a couple should be having sex. It depends on the couple, but what's important is that there's conversation about it. And what I have found to be fascinating, and what I've experienced in way past relationships, is just the lack of conversation around it. People won't talk about sex with each other, and yet it's one of the most important conversations to have with your partner on an ongoing basis.
Like, what does that look like? Just asking people if they're satisfied with their sex life?
Yeah, just like, is there anything that you need in the bed? Whatever. Like, I'd love to be having more sex. What would make you feel more interested in having more sex? Is there something that you want to explore that you've been afraid to explore, but want to explore with me? Or something that you've been afraid to tell me? It's just being really open and honest with each other about it. It's, people are really funny with sex. There's talking about it. There's so much shame. There's so much taboo, but you got to talk about money and sex with your partner, and often.
Totally. When is it time for somebody to walk away from a relationship?
That's the $1 million question. Well, if there's any violence, you need to leave. More than one infidelity, I think you got to go. Look, lots of couples come back to each other after an infidelity, and infidelity can be very complex and very, very weighted. And a couple that wants to repair their relationship after an infidelity needs third-party help. And I'm all for it for certain circumstances. But if there's repeated cheating, like it happens, I'm not talking about with one person. I'm not talking about an affair. I'm talking about you had 2 affairs, right? Like you did it, then you came, somehow you fixed it, or you got your help and you decided to stay together as a couple. If it happens again, you got to leave the person, because you're never going to trust them. And if you can't trust your partner, there is no point in being in a relationship with them. Trust is the glue. Other than that, it depends. If this is a relationship that you have a lot invested in, there's no abuse, nothing like that, don't leave your relationship until you kind of have been able to look in the mirror and ask yourself, how have I contributed to whatever is not working here? Because I think that if you do end up leaving, you want to be able to say, you know what? I did the work. I took responsibility. I made some changes, and I still just don't want to be with this person, or I'm still unhappy. Then you have to leave.
Last question I have for you is, what do you say to somebody who has been hurt so much that they just don't think they're going to find love? They're afraid of finding love. They think that every person they date is going to be a narcissist. Like, what do you say to that person?
I want to know their story. What is the story or the stories that they have around their heartbreak? I want to know what happened to them. And, more times than not, I will help them see how some of the choices that they made in the relationship, for some people, it's the choices in the person who they decided to be in a relationship with. And I'll just show them how their pasts, some of their trauma or some of their conditioning may have interfered, and help them see it from a different perspective and see that actually they can make changes. This is why I wrote my book, Doug, to really show people that you can actually, there are things that you can do and change and learn to make it so that you don't have those terrible experiences anymore.
Jillian, this has been amazing as always. If people want to buy the book, where do they do so? Anywhere where books are sold. And you can definitely go to jillianturecki.com/book. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. I think my audience is going to get a lot of value out of this. Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, I really think you're going to like this video as well. I'll see you there.